Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on Underground Storage Tank Program. This webinar is sponsored by ADEQ and the Western Sustainability and Pollution Prevention Network. WSPN is an alliance of pollution prevention programs throughout EPA Region 9 and is part of a national network of pollution prevention centers around the country called the Pollution Prevention Resource Exchange. My name is Tabitha Aspling, and I will be your moderator today. Before I introduce the speaker, I would like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's webinar. As noted at the start of the webinar, all attendees are in listen-only mode and will remain so through the entirety of the webinar. We will be hosting a question and answer session at the conclusion of the presentation. We encourage you to submit questions as the presentation takes place. You can do so by typing your questions into the question pane of the control panel. We will collect these and address them during the Q&A session at the end. We are recording today's webinar, and it will be posted along with the webinar presentation and available on the WSPN website. You will receive a short survey via email after today's webinar. Please take a few minutes to fill it out. And now I would like to introduce today's webinar presenters. Matt Garcia is a senior UST inspector in the Tank Inspection Compliance and Enforcement Unit with the Waste Programs Division at ADEQ. Matt conducts UST inspections and does plan reviews. He has worked for ADEQ for 12 years, all in the UST unit. Prior to coming to ADEQ, he worked in the health, environmental, and safety field. Matt served in the Army and the medical field dealing with environmental issues. Travis Barnum is the manager of the UST Inspections Compliance and Enforcement Unit with the Waste Programs Division of ADEQ. Travis oversees UST inspectors and compliance officers who perform inspections, file reviews, and case management with the goal of improving leak prevention. He has been with ADEQ for 9 years, and previous to working with the UST program, he was a project manager for Superfund sites in Arizona, an inspector with the Air Quality Field Inspections Unit, and an inspector with the Hazardous Waste Inspections and Compliance Unit. Mr. Barnum received his Bachelor of Science in Aeronautical Technology Management and has an MBA with an emphasis in international business. And without further ado, I will switch it over to our presenters.
All right, thank you, Tabitha. This is Travis Barnum.
And this is Matt Garcia.
And we are with the Inspections Compliance Enforcement Unit. And I see right off the bat, I think we are in the middle of the presentation. So get back to the beginning.
There we go.
There we go. All right. Not a problem we can't solve. Okay. So again, good morning. And today we're just going to do a quick overview of our program here at ADEQ and what we do in the inspections unit. And then we'll go over these 3 topic items. We're going to talk about some changes that occurred for us to do plan reviews. This would include installations, doing modifications and closures. Also, the House Bill 2636 that took place back in 2015, some of the changes that occurred there. And then, of course, our rule updates that are coming from EPA. And then here, if you notice off to the right, I just did a quick summary of some of our hot topic items for people that are out of compliance. Again, it seems to be most of it is always related to monitoring of your test equipment and release detection equipment. We also have issues making sure people have operator training and things of that nature. So those are like the majority of what we see for compliance issues over the past year. So in our ADEQ UST program, we're essentially broken up into 2 areas. One we call leak prevention, and then of course our corrective actions where after the tanks have had a release. And so to keep things focused and fit within the time frame we have today, we're just going to be covering the leak prevention side. Hopefully in future webinars we'll have some things in regards to our corrective action side. So again, in leak prevention we do plan reviews, we do the service provider certification, and of course our inspections, and then the compliance follow-up. So our group, we're known as TICE, that's the Tank Inspections Compliance and Enforcement Unit. We are pretty much responsible for inspecting approximately 2,300 regulated UST facilities here in Arizona. The requirement we have from EPA in our Memorandum of Understanding is that each one of those sites gets inspected once every 3 years. So as you can tell, we usually roughly do about 800 inspections a year to make that happen. So some of the things that we offer is compliance assistance to the owners and operators. So anyone can feel free to contact our unit if they have questions. We can come out and do compliance assistance. We of course still always do our triennial compliance inspections, and we can also come out and help with UST training. Not to be confused with operator training. That's something that actually is on the docket for us to do have an official capacity. But for right now, we do also help you come out to your site and help you maybe understand your system. Maybe you don't understand how your ATG works, or making you understand how to do a site check as far as going around and what to look for to see if a spilled bucket is cracked, or to understand what it means to have water in a sump or in the UDC. So our inspectors are trained to be able to help you walk through that. We also provide compliance follow-up after an inspection. So again, that's kind of around the same thing where, you know, we noticed when we came out and you were out of compliance for your release detection. Maybe after the fact we can come out and help you understand how to not be out of compliance for that in the future. We try to do that at the inspection, but maybe the right people weren't there at the time of the inspection, so we can come back out and visit the people that would need to know what to do.
Furthermore on it, enforcement of the owner-operators who have not achieved compliance. A lot of that, we try to not do enforcement as much as just working with the people, trying to get them. We found a lot of it's just lack of knowledge of some of the things that go on. Enforcement on leaking underground storage tank sites. Provide install, closure, modifications, inspections, and plan reviews. That's something that we're really getting into. We saw a need for it, and the opportunity was handed to us, and so we took a hold of it. And then service provider certifications and renewals.
And with that, since we're going to try to grow that area, is we are going to be, I look out there for on the state jobs. We're hoping to have a job go out to hire for that service provider position. So there is that opportunity probably coming later this year. So if anyone's looking to come work for us, that'd be a great opportunity for you if you have background on basically doing the different activities for tank type testing, line testing, things like that, doing sump tests. So if you have any experience or background in that, then you could be a good candidate for us. So our team right now, it's comprised of 12 people. I'm the manager, Matt's the senior inspector. We have 4 other inspectors, and then we have compliance officers, and also our team lead, Amy, and then Sam, who is kind of our end-all, be-all to help us basically deal with all the paperwork and all the incoming calls and inquiries that go with the service provider program and the plan review. And that's where we've identified we need more capacity, so we want to get an additional person in there for that service provider position. I'm also actually down a compliance officer, so that job should be going out here in the next few weeks. So if there's anyone with a compliance background, we'd love to get your resume. So that's some good news there.
Okay, this next part we'll be going over the plan reviews. Basically, effective February 1st of 2017, we took over from the State Fire Marshal's office and the Phoenix Fire Department the plan review and reviewing of installs, closures, lining, and modifications. Except for in the city of Tucson, they'll be doing their own still. We were when we took a look at the program and we had other people as part of a delegation agreement, I did come up on one site where everything was permitted, everything else was proper, but since everyone has sort of a lack of staffing, getting people to the sites was always an issue. I showed up at a site and they were actually doing a sandblasting the inside of the tank, and basically the guy was inside the tank and there was nobody around. One person was asleep in his truck, the other person was messing around in the trailer. So that brought to light that we needed a little bit more oversight on what's happening out in our area. Currently, there's no cost for the ADEQ plan review. The local fire authorities will still be issuing permits for the non-UST related items. And if I have any contractors on here, that means to get your electrical permits, your construction permits, those type of things, still go through the local fire authority. What we've done as a unit is we've committed to a three business day turnaround for each one of the applications. So if you send in an application for an install, a closure, a lining, or modification, we've committed to within 3 days get back with you to say either you need to provide more information or everything looks fine. What we've done is on the ADEQ, azdeq.gov website, you can go into the plan review, the UST plan reviews. You go right into there, and we have an area where you can just click on, download all the information, fill it out, and then send it right back to us via the website. It goes right into Samantha, and we can process it very quickly.
All right, so the next section is our House Bill 2636 from 2015. And again, I just want to emphasize 2015 because if you were to look up the current bill for 2636, it's a whole other program. So just make sure everyone's clear on how that works. Again, what we did is it modified a few UST regulations, and one of the main ones was that owner and operators were now required to notify ADQ at least 30 days before, or I believe, was it 30 days after?
It was
prior to this?
Right, it was after.
So now it's before bringing the USTs into operation. And then, of course, anyone who sells a tank for use as a UST is also required to provide ADQ documentation demonstrating that they notified the purchaser of those requirements. There are also some changes to the FR requirements, the financial responsibility. One of the main ones now is just that you're required to provide ADQ a copy of the documentation from the FR provider when coverage is denied. Also, when a coverage is terminated or not renewed, then the insurance provider has to notify ADQ of that change. And then there are also new limits to how retro dates work for the UST insurance coverage. And then owners and operators may request ADQ's assistance in pursuing claims against the FR mechanism. So this is basically if you have a claim that's denied, then you can contact ADQ to get further assistance on what to do next. And again, we have, if you go to our website, we have a couple of people that are what I call our subject matter experts who could help handle any additional questions in regards to that. It also helped establish some new financial assistance programs to help with leak prevention and the cost of cleanup. The main one that impacts our team is the state lead non-corrective actions, and that's currently implemented, and that helps us with a lot of sites where when we talk about people abandoning or orphaning a site, or someone just knows they want to get out of the business, they have old tanks that just can't pass muster anymore. So this program allows them to submit an application and potentially get the tanks pulled by ADQ. So it's a great program. It helps us get rid of blighted sites, especially in the small communities where you go down the main drag and every other property has like a fence around it, and obviously the small towns don't care for that, especially when some of our small towns that main drag is almost basically a piece of history, and so the last thing you need is to have a bunch of cyclone fencing, on your historical drive. So this is definitely a program that's helpful in that regards. There's some other things coming along with the UST grant program, but that's coming soon, and I'm pretty sure the next time we have a webinar, we'll be able to dive into the particulars of that in that webinar. And of course, like I said, our corrective action side I don't want to dive into that because we have some really well-trained, informative people in that, and I'm not going to even try to attempt to explain the program that they do so well. So again, just keep your eyes and ears for the next time we do a webinar, because I definitely believe we'll have one coming soon, especially for that grant program. And of course, you see at the bottom, there is some information on our website currently, and it also would have the points of contact to talk to on those.
Okay, now we're going to go into the new EPA regulations that have come out. Basically, in July of 2015, EPA came out and said, okay, we want to update. And so they basically did some sweeping changes for all of the regulations. ADEQ currently has not adopted those yet. We're actually in the process of working through our state legislators to get this adopted. I did provide the website down below on the EPA.gov, which goes over each one of the regulations. We try to summarize a little bit here, so that way you don't know how to change things as it goes through. The first main thing is secondary containment. Basically, anything that you install must be double wall, and that includes tanks and piping. Arizona has had that rule since 2009, and now it's just fortified with the federal EPA rules. You must use interstitial monitoring for release detection, whether it's the piping, the tank, that has to be interstitial monitoring. Again, this is something that ADEQ has started since 2009. It's just being reinforced by the federal EPA. One big thing is the line leak detectors are still required. I know for some reason, somehow everyone went out and said, okay, we have interstitial monitoring, we don't need line leak detectors. And that was sort of something that came through around 2009, where contractors were not even installing line leak detectors. But yes, they are still required. Replace piping over 50% must be double wall. So if you have single wall piping and you're replacing over 50%, the entire thing must be double wall piping. And it has to meet the interstitial monitoring release detection requirements. That's a change to the Arizona's current, which is 25%. So that's something that will help out a lot of the mom and pops, I think. The under dispenser containment, or UDC, are required and must be monitored. How Arizona runs that is you can install a sensor. Different types of boxes have their own sensors associated with it, and you can do visual checks. We're allowing that, where you're logging in monthly visual checks. All of those things are fine. Training, which is another big thing that they wanted to, when the original training came out in 2009, part of the 2005 Energy Act, it was sort of weak. There wasn't a lot of bite to it. Came back and added a lot more things to it, and everyone basically needs to be trained, A, B, and C operators. The big thing that they must be testing and proof of training completion. So there has to be testing that's involved in it. Training program must be approved. So ADEQ, like Travis said, we're actually working on looking at a operator training coming from ADEQ, and that would be the approved training. And then, I know other people do training, have their own training that are approved in other states. And I'm sure at a later date, probably at the next webinar, we'll be able to speak a lot more with this. Retraining, if there's a violation, has to be done within 30 days. I don't know if Arizona is going to adopt all of this, but not required if A and B receive annual refresher training and ADEQ waives the retraining. I don't know where we stand as far as doing a lot of that stuff. I know back in 2009, when a lot of this came through, we had a major corporation and we were going to write up a training violation, and then realized that it required everyone to be retrained, because there was nothing really written in to say just that site. So basically, if you wrote up a corporation, everyone in that corporation had to be retrained. So we've taken a lot of those hands-on things that we've seen in the field and trying to adapt it and make it a little bit easier for the new rules that are being done. The records, they must be at the facility or easily accessible like everything else, and prove that the operator passed the required training course. That's something that we're really looking at. What kind of proof is there? Is there a test and they have a passing test result? These are all things that I'd love to say that we're got everything perfect on everything else, but it's something that we're all just really taking a look at and seeing what the practicality is out in the field. It's easy to say, okay, thou shalt do this, but if you can't do it in the field, it makes no sense.
And then just to add to that really quickly, and we're just to help understand the culture here at ADQ, is we're very much in tune with wanting to hear the voice of the customer. So since knowing that we're going to be trying to put together a training program, for those of you here on this presentation today, you have our contact info. Feel free to email us information on things that you like or don't like about operator training. What makes it difficult? Is it the way it interfaces? Is it the schedule and time? Just kind of give us that feedback so we can design it to be as user-friendly and as accessible as possible. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Definitely. Operations and maintenance, there'll be a required every 30 days a walkthrough inspection, usually done by the C operator, taking a look at exactly what it has to look at and stuff like that. We're actually working on that. I know with here in Arizona, what I thought was funny when we were reading through it, it says every 30 days or any significant rain. And Arizona we don't get that much rain unless you look outside right now and there's dark clouds and it's raining, but very rarely do we get any rain. So we're trying to get it to be more user-friendly for each one of the facilities. Overfill and prevention inspections once every 3 years, and some of the manufacturers that I've seen now are starting to go back and say, well, we want an annual inspection of the overfill device. So that's a big thing. We're taking a look at those. Ball floats, which are very common throughout Arizona, that'll be one thing that will be phased out or no longer acceptable. We've taken a look at, part of the idea of the ball floats is, how effective were they? And as you start doing closures and you see the balls of the ball float on the bottom of each one of the tanks that you're pulling out, you realize that they just were not that effective. So I think the EPA did a very good job of researching this and finding out that, the flappers, the audible alarms were doing a much better job than the ball floats were. Sump spill bucks and UDCs, once every 3 years they have to be hydrostatically tested. Currently in Arizona right now, once a change is made or you're installing one, we require the hydrostatic test. Taking a look at this, we've seen some of the issues that have been around the country with different types of testing machines, failure rates, those type of things. So we're taking a very close look at this in particular and saying, okay, what are we really looking for? What are we trying to do? I know there's some testers out there, the automatic testers that come out, and basically they almost fail everything because they're so sensitive. But we want to make sure that we have the right, rules written for this. Release detection equipment, electronic and mechanical, still requires annual testing. Arizona has required that for many years, and EPA is just siding with us on that. Compatibility, you must show compatibility 30 days prior to putting it in or using the UST. Compatibility is for the UST system and all of its components. In Arizona, we've been having an issue with compatibility, seeing, deterioration of tanks, delamination of tanks. So this sort of hits home with us. We've had a lot of lining that are going on in Arizona, and we're really taking a look at that. I know Oak Ridge Labs did a large research on it and provided a lot of the information. So as we're going through this part, we're using a lot of the research that's already been done out there by Oak Ridge Labs, the EPA, SWAMO, just different things, really taking a look and making sure we have the right handle on this stuff. A lot of the exceptions that were out there, basically emergency generators, all you had to do was meet the old requirements, the spill and overfill. Now they're going to be totally regulated, just like a regular gas station or anything like that. Field construction tanks, which Arizona has hardly any at all, if any. Those are going to now be fully regulated in the airport hydrant systems. That's one where we've already started to reach out to a lot of the airports, letting them know that this is in the works, trying to see what we're looking at as far as the number that are out there and how it affects them, because now it changes how they run their business. So we've been trying to reach out to a lot of the people out there to see how we can help them and how we can bring these rules on to make it easier for them. One of the big things were a lot of the codes and the standards were updated. They went through and said, okay, if we're going to have all these sweeping changes, we need to update how we do things, how things are done. Assessing the tank integrity, repairs, and lining, that was a big one. That's very important to us because there's a lot of issues with lining and delamination of tanks in Arizona. So that's been totally updated with a lot of the new information, a lot of the research that's been out there. They added that into it. The closure, taking a look at how to do the proper closure. I know all of us that have been in the tank field for long enough, the closure without tears video that we've all seen 975 times, updating that, since that's a 1980s video, taking a look at the cathodic protection, how is it really working, what are the standards for it, how it's done, how it's tested to make sure, especially with sacrificial anodes, how are we sure that we're getting a good protection from those things. General UST, just how to operate your system. How is the system doing? The idea is for a lot of these, for a owner to be able to read something and sort of have an idea, so when their contractor comes out, they can ask very good questions and get real results of the work that's being done out there. Installation, release detection, that one seemed to it seemed like that one took the longest time to get done, and I really don't know why, but there was a lot of really good information in there. Tanks and piping, going over the updates and the new type of piping, the new type of tanks that are out there, how they're manufactured, and taking a look at the glues that are used and different things like that. So that was really good to really update everything and get it to where we can reduce the amount of releases that are out there, because ultimately that's our job, is to try to help reduce the amount of releases that are out there. And then I guess we're back. I always use this picture at the end because this is my favorite picture. Ask the contractor, did you fix it? They had a leaking flex line. Yeah, I fixed it. Okay, so I went out there, and yes, that is duct tape and a high-pressure rag. Didn't work real well since it actually filled up the sump with gasoline, but that was his idea of fixing a tank, or fixing the line. And I use it for my question one because he never asked any questions. He just automatically knew exactly what to do, how to do it, didn't want to reach in there to try to undo the flex piping, so that was his way of fixing it. To me, questions are the biggest things. Since I'm a field inspector, I'm out in the field all the time. If you notice, if you see our contact list, for all the inspectors, you have our email address, which goes directly to our phone, and all of those are not our office business, our office phone numbers. Those are our cell phone numbers. We're out in the field. We'd rather you contact us, ask the question, let us help you, make the right decision on something instead of just making a decision and ending up with a release. And to us, that's very important. over the last decade, we've had this sort of fundamental shift of being a little bit more proactive with the community and with the UST owners and the contractors, trying to really work with them to prevent the releases, prevent the write-ups that happen when I come out to do an inspection. And as an agency, that's been one of our big goals, is to say, okay, how do we make things in compliance? How do we get to the point where we show up, they're in compliance, all we're doing is asking some questions, just going through the system where every tank owner, knows everything about his system, knows how to prevent the releases, knows what to do to stay in compliance. And I think we've taken a lot of steps forward in that. And I think we're at that point right now where we're just sort of moving to the next step. And the big thing is the availability of the inspectors. We now have 5 inspectors, and we're at, I think I'm the only one in the Phoenix area. Everyone else is someplace out within the state. So if you ever have a question, all you have to do is give us a call. We can have an inspector there fairly quickly because we're somewhere in the state. We can help you out. We can answer phone, if you just have something over the phone, or if you want to send us pictures, those type of things.
Yeah, when you think of like compliance and enforcement, if you think how police and they have a quota, they had to make sure they issued so many tickets, that is not a metric for us. That is not any kind of guidance for us. Our guidance is actually how high of a percentage of incompliance at the time of inspection can we get it. So we're actually a little bit below our goal that we wanted to be. I think coming out of 2015, we're just hovering under 50%, and we would like one day to get that up to 80% where people are in compliance at the time of the inspection. So that's a big goal for us. So we do not have a got you mentality. If anything, we want to show up and see that everything is being done correctly, that you are monitoring your ATG, that your equipment has been updated so that there's not a calibration issue with how your equipment's working, that there's a full understanding that you had a good enough training to know if your probes are sitting too high or if they're sitting sideways when you go to do your visual inspection, things of that nature. Am I looking at water? Am I looking at fuel? So part of that's all about education and training. So we have a strong emphasis on doing that. For the state of Arizona, I know some states you get charged when they come out and do an inspection. We don't charge for an inspection. When we come out for the inspection, we're there just to see that you got everything, your P's and Q's, and if there isn't something quite right, then we're there to give you advice. Yes, will you get a notice of opportunity to correct, or if it's severe enough, a notice of violation? Yes, but the idea is you then have 30 days to come into compliance. So we want, that's more of just if anything, it's like a free consultation. So you see that, we're not doing something right, so let's get this corrected. So, and that is actually our other metric, is how quickly we get people to return to compliance. So our 2 big metrics are all about making things better. So we want people to be in compliance at the time of inspection, and then if you are out of compliance, how quickly can we get that turned around so you are back in compliance? And so that's the big piece for us. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about working with you. I think, 12 years ago when I first started doing this, we were going out and finding a ton of violations and stuff like that, and finding suspected releases that nobody knew about. Now we're to a point where I'm getting calls from the owners saying, "Hey, can you come out and take a look at my site?" There's no fear. There's not, we're not out there to get you. Like in 2009 when the red tag or the prohibition of delivery came out, that wasn't something that we threw 80 tags in our trucks and went out to find as many people as we could shut down. To this day, we work with you even if you need a red tag or you're at that point where a red tag, we're still going to work with you. We're going to bend over backwards to help you. We would, for the way I look at it from my perspective as the field inspector is, I'm your inspector, for 30 days out of a 3-year period. The rest of the time, I'm the guy that comes in there, buys gas at your gas station, goes and gets a cup of coffee, and meets with you, stay in your town, do those type of things. We build those relationships up because I think those are very important. And I've had a lot of comments from the station owners and the contractors now of the change that ADEQ is going through, and some more, not only just business friendly, but friendlier place to deal with. And I think that more than anything else is a sign that we're really doing a good job.
And then Matt, correct me if I'm wrong. So like in this photo, the tourniquet, was that done by a certified service provider?
Yes, that was done.
So again, this is where we're identifying issues and trying to correct what we'd call a countermeasure to correct it. So here it is. We had a certified service provider do that type of work. So that tells us we need to go back and look at how well we're vetting people to be able to do work on USTs and that equipment. So again, that's why we'll be pushing to add another person to look at this more closely. And also make it fair. It's not fair to the service providers that do a great job out there than to have them get lumped into someone doing this kind of work. So that's just another example of how we're just identifying how we can do things better. And then at this point, Tabitha, if you want to go ahead and start questions.
If there are any questions out there?
Okay, yeah, there are a couple in the queue. Let me pull them up here. Will ADEQ seek state program approval when it updates its UST rules?
I do not know the answer to that. I know there's a couple of rule changes that would have to occur for us to even approach that, mainly on how our rule is written for definition of owner. So So it would be more of a two-step process. Before we look at becoming a SPA state, we first have to look at redefining how we define an owner of USTs. So if you start hearing that for rule changes, ADEQ is trying to get the definition of owner changed, then that's going to probably be a sign that we might be seeking to become a SPA state. But correct. So the quick answer is no, not seeking SPA, because we have just a certain rule for a definition of owner that has to be changed in order to do that.
Okay. Next question. Does ADEQ plan to incorporate operator training requirements into its UST rules?
Yes, I would assume so. I mean, it's already in the ARS, and when the upgrade for the Title 18, when that starts going through, I'm sure that will just transfer right over. Again, one of the things we're trying to develop our own sort of operator training, so people aren't having to go out and do a lot of different things or go to the state of Montana or something like that. We're trying to do our own in-house one.
Okay. Next question. Will ADEQ UST rules waive the Sump spill bucket UDC tests if the units are double wall with interstitial monitoring?
Interstitial.
Thank you.
Some states have, and I know the people that are working on it. I did bring that up to them as fact, as part of, some states allow if they're doing the interstitial monitoring on the double, and some of them are even triple wall, where they have the interstitial, they can prove that it's, the annual calibration and it's monitored monthly. I don't know where we stand on that yet. That's definitely a decision way above my pay grade. I did suggest it because it's not a bad idea to be able to do it like that. But I know we did suggest that to the people that are starting to make these rules right now, that other states are doing it and it's working out perfectly with them.
Okay, thank you. The next question, who specifically do I talk to about operator training in ADEQ?
I would put that to Matt Garcia at this point.
They can contact me at my cell phone number and my email's right there. They can feel free to contact me and I can answer any questions they have.
Okay. Would you elaborate on the notification requirement for the seller of the tank?
Unfortunately, how they wrote the House bill, it was very vague. Basically, what I've seen, and this is I don't know if this is done all around, but what I've seen is in the either the selling documents or the leasing documents, it's stated in there in one of the sections that they have to notify ADEQ, where they're letting them know that they have to notify ADEQ that they are now a new owner and have to fill out a notification form. I know with some of the brokers, they're actually, going to have the information to go out and help the new buyer, fill out a notification form, and that's a way of doing it. But other than that, it was pretty vague on how that rule was written. So,
but we'll definitely
find out about it.
Find out more, because I get the question, because it was like, how do you do that? Because I understand, like, through like the real estate transaction, you have to do a seller disclosure and let them know certain things environmentally, like, is it an award site or a Superfund site? Does it have regulated USTs? Those kinds of things. And that has to be on the disclosure document that are the real estate documents. But you're right. What's the form, and how do you let ADQ know that? So we'll definitely take that question. And Tabitha, correct me if I'm wrong, is that something where these will be somewhere
Yep.
listed of these questions, where we can get back to them with an official email?
Good.
Okay, good.
Next question, do I need to send an updated notification when switching from E85 to E54 gasoline in a UST?
Yes. This is a change of product.
Okay. Next question, what are the procedures for lining a tank for either repair or compatibility, and to demonstrate compatibility compliance?
Well,
yeah, that's a big one.
That's been the $64,000 question here. We refer back to our rules, basically, and in our rules, it refers to several API 1631, the UL, the fire codes. Our rules basically refer back to those documents, and we're doing it right now on sort of a place or a facility by facility basis, where basically we're taking a look at each facility, how they're going to line it, how they're going to repair it, how bad is the tank, what's the what's the status of the tank, is it, can it be relined, checking with the manufacturers of the tank, seeing what they're calling out, checking with UL or the Canadian UL to see if the products are okay to be used. There's not a cookie cutter thing for this yet. I wish there was, since I'm the one that's doing the plan review, but there's nothing. It's for us, it takes a long time trying to go through everything and a lot of information back and forth. If somebody has a true question and wants to get a tank relined or trying to get information on it, I welcome them to contact me at any time, and I can give them as much information as I can and at least point them in the right direction with manufacturers and stuff like that.
Okay. One more question. If, due to lack of documentation, a tank owner-operator cannot demonstrate compatibility for every component in an existing non-leaking tank system, what actions does ADEQ require in that situation?
What we normally do is we've had a couple of situations where it's an older system or the documentation was lost. Most of the time, the certified contractors can go out there. They have a lot of knowledge on the different systems and stuff. Be able to contact the manufacturers and get compatibility information for all the components. We've had to do that on several different sites, and it's worked perfectly for all those sites. I haven't had a instance where it hasn't worked. So the certified contractor definitely can get all that information for them, even if the owner does not have the documentation.
Okay. And can you put show the screen with the contact information again? There's a couple people requesting that.
Is that the one with the list of folks?
Yeah.
There you go. Okay, leave that up for just a second. So everybody can get that, and everyone can remember that this will also be on the WISPN website as well as a recording of this webinar. But as of right now, there are no more questions, so I'd like to thank everyone for participating in today's webinar, and it's wispn.org, wsppn.org/webinars. It will be available later this afternoon. And with that, that concludes today's webinar. Thank you.
Thank you.